Our lesson this time is all about depreciation and valuation. So depreciation, that is the decrease in value of a physical property due to the passage of time. So in other words, we have our property and then at a certain time or later on, its value will depreciate. So we have two types of depreciation. We have what we call as the physical depreciation and functional depreciation. For physical depreciation, this is the type of depreciation caused by the lessening of the physical ability of the property to produce results such as physical damage, wear, and tear. And then functional depreciation is the type of depreciation caused by the lessening in the demand for which the property is designed to render, such as obsolescence and inadequacy. On the other hand, we have what we call valuation or appraisal. This is the process of determining the value of or worth of a physical property for specific reasons. And then we have also here the purpose of depreciation. First is to provide for the recovery of capital which has been invested in the property. Of course, that is our target. No? At least we can recover the capital for the device or machines that we bought later on. And then another purpose is to enable the cost of depreciation to be charged to the cost of producing the products that are torn out by the property. Okay, so we have this one as our purpose for having that depreciation. So in short, depreciation, we take a recovery of the amount we spent for that particular, let's say, machine. Now, in our discussion about depreciation, we have to discuss first the different terms which we may encounter during our computation for depreciation. First, we have here what we call as the first cost. This is the total amount invested on the property until the property is put into operation. So first cost is the amount that you buy or spend for the expenses of a certain machines or device. And then we have also what we call as the economic life. We usually designate this one as letter N. So economic life is the length of time at which a property can be operated at a profit. And then we also have here value. We have to define what value is. This is the present worth, or in engineering economy, this is the present worth of all the future profits that are to be received through ownership of the property. And this value has these different terms. We have what we call as the market value, the price that will be paid by a willing buyer to a willing seller for a property where each has equal advantage and is under no compulsion to buy or sell. Another term that we may encounter later on in our problem is what we call as the book value. This is the worth of a property as shown in the accounting records. So we call it as a book value. And then we also have here a salvage value or resale value, the price of a property when sold second hand, also called trade-in value. So we call it as a salvage value. At least you can recover the amount of the machineries or machines that you bought. And then we also have here what we call as the scrap value. This is the price of a property when sold for junk. And also we have fair value, the worth of a property as determined by a disinterested party, which is fair to both seller and buyer. So fair value. And we have here the use value. This is the worth of a property as an operating unit. And face or par value of a bond, the amount that appears on the bond, which is the price at which the bond is first bought. And then the sunk cost. Okay, these two other terms will be used later. So sunk cost, an amount which has been spent for some reason cannot be recovered. So that is sunk cost. So these are the different terms that we may encounter later on when we solve problems in especially depreciation. Now we have here another term, depletion. that is the decrease in value of a property due to the gradual extraction of its contents, such as in mining properties, oil wells, timberlands, and other consumable resources. And in our computation for depreciation, we have here the different methods. First, we have what we call as the straight line method. Another one, the sinking fund method. Another one, the sum of years digit method. And then we have here the declining balance method. And then service output or production unit method. And lastly, we have what we call as the working hours or machine hours method. Now, each method will be discussed later on by showing or presenting a problem wherein the different formulas will also be discussed. So we will start first discussing a straight line method, sinking fund method, and then sum of years digit method by presenting a problem. Okay, so we have here our example. Example number 1. A manufacturing firm has just installed a standby power generating unit at a first cost of 700,000. The projected useful life is 20 years and the estimated salvage value is 10%. Determine the following. First, the annual depreciation charges using the straight line method and book value after 10 years. And then we have letter B, the annual depreciation charges using a sinking fund method and book value after 10 years, assuming cost of money to be 12%. So before we answer this particular problem, we have to solve first. I have to show first to you the different formula for solving straight line method. So we will start with a straight line method in our discussion. So I will write here what we call as the straight line method. So in our discussion about the straight line method, we usually solve annual depreciation. So annual depreciation. Okay, so this is annual depreciation. That is equivalent to the first cost minus the salvage value all over N, or the economic life. So FC stands for the first cost, and then SV stands for the salvage value. And if we solve the book value, this is our formula for book value after M years. Okay, so we have here B, book value after M years, that is equivalent to the first cost minus the M years times the first cost minus the salvage value all over N. Or in other words, this is our annual depreciation. So by solving this problem, letter A, a manufacturing firm has just installed a standby power generating unit at a first cost of 700,000. So our first cost is equivalent to 700,000. And then the projected useful life is 20. So our N is equivalent to 20 years. And estimated salvage value is 10%. So our salvage value is equivalent to 10% of the first cost. Okay, so 10% of the first cost, which is equivalent to 70,000. That is our salvage value. So that when we solve our annual depreciation charges using a straight line method, we will simply use this formula that is equivalent to our first cost, which is equivalent to 700,000, minus salvage value, that is 0.10, or that is 10% of our first cost, which is 700,000. 10% of 700,000 divided by our N, the useful life, which is equivalent to 20. So that is equivalent to 31,500. So that is the annual depreciation. Now how about the book value after m years. So we have here the book value after 10 years. So our m here is 10. So when we substitute that value to this formula, then we will have our first cost, which is equivalent to 700,000. That is our first cost minus m, that is after 10 years. So we have here 10, and then of course our annual depreciation, which is equivalent to 31,500. So that is equivalent to 385,000. Okay, so take note of this one. This is our annual depreciation. So this is also our annual depreciation when we compute our book value. So whatever the value of our annual depreciation, where in this case we have 31,500, then this is also 31,500. So we simply multiply this one to 10, wherein 10 is the book value after 10 years. So book value after m years. So this is our m, this is our m after 10 years. So that is our solution to letter A, annual depreciation charge using a straight line method, and then the book value after 10 years. So this is a straight line method. Now we will proceed with letter B. Letter B is the annual depreciation charges using sinking fund method and book value after 10 years, assuming cost of money to be 12%. So before we answer this problem, we have to discuss first sinking fund method. So sinking fund method, of course, I will write first this one, sinking fund method. Now in sinking fund method, we usually find our annual depreciation, okay, which is equivalent to the first cost, which is FC, minus the salvage value, divided by 1 plus I raised to n minus 1 all over I. This is how we find our annual depreciation, wherein I is the interest rate or worth of money. For this case, we have here 12%. And then if we want to find the book value after m years, okay, so our formula here, book value after m years, that is equivalent to the first cost minus the annual depreciation times 1 plus I raised to m after m years of minus 1 divided by I. Okay, so when we solve this problem, the annual depreciation, so we now proceed with letter B, annual depreciation charge using sinking fund method. So this time we will solve the annual depreciation using sinking fund method. So for sinking fund method, of course, our first cost is 700,000. So this is 700,000 minus our salvage value, that is 10% of the first cost, which is 700,000, or that is equivalent to 70,000, divided by 1 plus I. Our I here is 12%, so that is 0.12. So 1 plus 0.12 raised to our n. So we have our n equivalent to 10 years, 20 years. So we have here 20, this is the useful life, minus 1 divided by our I, which is 0.12. So when we compute this one, that is equivalent to, this is annual depreciation. So the equivalent for this one is 8,743.63. Okay, so that is the annual depreciation. So we have done with the annual depreciation, this time using sinking fund method. Now this time we will solve the book value after 10 years. So book value after 10 years, we have here our first cost, which is equivalent to 700,000 minus our annual depreciation we have already solved as 8,743.63. multiply it by 1 plus I, that is 1.12, 1 plus 0.12 raised to m. So after 10 years, so raised to 10 minus 1 all over I, which is equivalent to 0.12. That is our I. So that when we compute this one, the value here is 560.33. So this is the book value after 10 years. So again, when we solve the annual depreciation, this is our equivalent for the annual depreciation using sinking fund method, and then the book value is our book value after 10 years. So that is equivalent to 546,560. So if you have noticed, this is sinking fund method. We compare it to a straight line method. Annual depreciation for a straight line method is 31,500. Comparing it to the sinking fund method is 8,743. Whereas in the book value, that is 385,000 for straight line, and then sinking fund method is 546,560. So this is sinking fund method. So we have done with our example using straight line method. Then we also have here sinking fund method, and then the next one is a sum of years digit method. So to discuss sum of years digit method, we go directly with the example. So we have here our problem. An asset is purchased for 25,000. Its estimated life is 10 years, after which it will be sold for 8,000. Find the book value during the 4th year if the sum of years digit depreciation is used. So this is sum of years digit method. So we will discuss first this sum of years digit method. So in sum of years digit method, we first compute the sum of years digit. So that is S, E, Y, and then D. Sum of years digit, which is equivalent to, if our N is 10 years, so our SYD is based on the estimated life. We have the sum of the year. So we have here 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 plus 6 plus 7 plus 8 plus 9 plus 10. That is how we compute the sum of years digit. If this is 5 years, then we will have 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5. if our estimated life is, let's say, 4 years, then 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4. If the estimated life is, let's say, 6 years, then 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 plus 6. So after we solve SYD, or the sum of each digit, we first find the depreciation, first year depreciation, or dep 1, dep sub 1, that is equivalent to the first cost minus the salvage value, this is our formula, times n, that is the estimated life, over the SYD, or the sum of years digit. And then if we find the depreciation on the second year, we have here F, first cost minus the salvage value, multiplied by n minus 1 all over the sum of years digit. And then the third annual depreciation, we have the first cost minus the salvage value times n minus 2 over SYD. Okay, and then the annual depreciation for, that is equivalent to the first cost minus the salvage value multiplied by n minus 3 over SYD, and so on. Okay, so whatever depreciation, whatever year for its depreciation. And then if we want to find the book value after m years, so we have here the book value after m years, so that is equivalent to the first cost minus the depreciation, the sum of its depreciation. So let's say year 1 depreciation plus year 2 depreciation plus year 3 plus year 4. So for this case, we are going to find, we are going to solve the book value after 4 years, no? So plus that plus the depreciation for m years. Okay, so that is our formula. Now this is how we find the sum of years digit method. First, we solve first our SYD, the annual depreciation, using this formula. So take note, this is year 1, so we have here our n. For year 2, we have our n minus 1. For year 3, we have n minus 2, and so on. Okay, so that is how we compute our annual depreciation. So we go back to our problem. An asset is purchased for 25,000. So this is our first cost. Its estimated life is 10 years. So this is our n, after which it will be sold for 8,000. So this is our salvage value. Find the book value during the 4th year if the sum of years digit depreciation is used. Okay, so for this case, of course, we solve first our SYD. So 1 plus 2, this is 10 years, so 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4, and so on until 10. So if we add this number, that is equivalent to 55. And then since this is during the 4th year, we want to find the book value during the 4th year. So we need to solve first the first year depreciation, second year, third year, and 4th year depreciation, because this will be added or sum up when we solve the book value after m years. So first year depreciation, we have here the first cost minus this salvage value. So our first cost here is 25,000. That is our first cost. Minus our salvage value, which is equivalent to 8,000. And then we multiply this one by n years, that is 10, over our SYD, that is 55. So we have our value here, that is 3090.91. For the second year of its depreciation, we have 25,000 minus 8,000 multiplied by 10 minus 1, that is 9 over 55. So we have the result of 2781.82. And then for the third year, we have 25,000 minus 8,000. Multiply this one by 10, 9, 8 over 55. That is equivalent to 2472.73. And then the fourth year depreciation, that is 25,000 minus 8,000, multiply it by 10,987 over 55. That is equivalent to 2163.64. Okay, so this time when we solve our book value after 4 years, so book value after 4 years, that is the first cost, which is equivalent to 25,000 minus the summation of the 4-year depreciation. So the first year depreciation, that is 3090.91 plus the second year 2781.82 plus the third year, which is 2472.73 plus the fourth year of depreciation, that is 2163.64. So we arrive to our value as 14,490,000. So this is our book value after 4 years using sum of years digit depreciation. So take note, sum of years digit depreciation, this is our formula. So take note of this one, our formula for the sum of years digit method. For sinking fund, annual depreciation and book value, we have this formula. And then for straight line method, we have the annual depreciation and book value formula. So we have here our first 3 methods of computing depreciations: the straight line, sinking fund, and sum of years digit method.